All right, welcome, guys. This is Breakfast with the Brand, the number one podcast in the world for entrepreneurs and leaders who want to take their brands to the next level. I am your host, Junior Frederick, and I have with me Mr. Bobby Stealth. And today's a phenomenal Saturday. I'm very interested. I'm interested in learning your thoughts, in learning how we can help you go to the next level. And we're about to get into that. But Bobby, what's up? How's everything going, man?
Things are going good, Junior. Things are going well, man. I had a interesting evening last night. Interesting evening where I found myself with a decision to make. It was go to bed now or stay up and grind. Eat this or eat that. Do this or do that. And I made the right decision most of the time. I think I went to bed sooner than I wanted to, but I did get the most of the work done. But the reason I share that with you is because the way I went to sleep had a big effect on how I woke up. I didn't want to get up this morning, man. Like when I got up, I was like, oh my goodness, I'm not ready to hit these push-ups as I get out of bed. I'm not ready to hit this. I'm not ready to do that. But I had to realize the energy needed to be taken up. I needed to get myself in the right state of mind because how I think is how I perform. So I'm feeling very interesting, super excited to talk about today's topic, but more so paying attention. It's the little things. The little things. How you go to sleep determines how you wake up. Little things. How you wake up, how you start your day determines how you finish it. The little things.
Yeah, I agree. In fact, I had a decision as well. When I woke up this morning, I woke up maybe like 4. I wake up normally around that time. And the previous night, go in a different direction, but to pick up from where I left off on a particular journey.
Mhm.
Okay. So pick up where I left off on a particular journey. And man, I just went all in. I went all in this morning. But then so from like 4 to like after 5, maybe like an hour, 15 minutes in, I was like, do I still hit the workout? Do I still go to the gym? I'm like, it's almost like I had two desires, bro. I had the desire to continue because when I get in on something, Bobby, bro, I'm a massive executor. So I'm going all in. I'm the kind of person and I go all the way in, like all the way to the end. I'm not the kind of person that will stop halfway, like start a course and don't finish a course. I go all the way to the end of the course. So I'm like, do I go all the way to the end of this program or do I train? And I said, you know what, let me just train. So I didn't go to train, but I ended up training sales actually while I train. So I did 2 sets of training, education this morning already, in addition to me working out. And I feel great. I feel great. So today's conversation, guys, we're going to be talking energy, the importance of energy when it comes to business. And trust me, this is going to be an absolutely amazing conversation. We're going to open up the curtains and allow you to see into our minds and get a look at what high performers do to take themselves and their brands to the next level. Okay? If you don't have your pen and your paper, I'm going to go to break right now. We're going to give you like 2 minutes to grab that stuff. And when we come back, we're going to be talking about the energy that you need to propel your business to the stratosphere. Don't miss it.
There's slow growth and then there's scale. There's incremental growth and then there's exponential growth. What I want to talk to you about is adding a zero to you and experiencing exponential scale. Incremental growth says 1 plus 1 is 2. Exponential growth says 1 plus 0 is 10. Incremental growth says 2 plus 2 is 4. Exponential growth says 5 plus 0 is 50. Guys, listen, when you add a zero to you, you can add a zero to the marketplace. You can add a zero to the value that you bring. So you can add a zero to your family, add a zero to your legacy. This is what we're talking about. We're not talking about incremental, we're talking about exponential. I always say that business is a spiritual game. Just imagine when you combine your skills, your values, your abilities, your talents to something bigger than you, something greater than you, something like the power of exponential. That is adding a zero. Add a zero to your competence, add a zero to your confidence. This is about adding a zero in your life, your value, your industry, and your mission. Let's grow. So when you're young, mommy tells you to play nice. Play nice, Timmy. Let all of the other kids play too. But in business, it's not about playing nice. In business, it's about winning. It's about adding multiple zeros to your revenue. Now, of course, your staff wins. And when you win, other people win. However, when it comes to competition, you absolutely must dominate. You can't play for participation, and you can't play just to get along or just to get by, because business is serious. Business will help you to change the world, or the world will change you. Your people will either win or your people will lose based on your level of leadership, what you're willing to do, what you're willing to sacrifice, and how much you know about dominating.
All right, guys, so we're back. Bobby, let's dive right in. Talk to me.
I love the conversation of it. Vibes and vibrations and auras and all this stuff, because we all know it exists, but no one can really determine, like no one can really define it. Like we can't say what it is or what it's not. We just know it's out there. So what I love about these conversations is that we can attack them from so many angles because there's so many perspectives about it. And there's so much data and information out there about it. So one of the things that I remember was a friend of mine, and I was trying to learn how to do pull-ups, guys. So I was scrawny. Like I'm still kind of small, but back then I was scrawny. I was really, really small, and I was struggling to do 20 pull-ups. That was the benchmark, so to speak, for a perfect score. So in the military, you got 3 workouts that you're doing. In the Marine Corps, anyway, you do pull-ups, you do a 3-mile run, and then you would do an abdominal series of crunches, right? So for me, I'm trying to get a perfect score. I'm trying to like max this thing out. So in order for me to do that, I needed to do 20 pull-ups. Now I had this friend, beast, monster. Now he's not super swole, but he's like not small. Like he's not small. So this guy gets on there and he's like, yo, you got to get in your zone, bro. That's what you need to do. Let me show you how I do mine. And then he goes over into his corner. He starts breathing like real hard. And like really getting into this thing. And he's like, yeah, man, you got to get mad. You got to get upset. You got to get mad. Then he hops up on this bar, like fuming and doing these pull-ups. And I'm just like, what is wrong with this guy? And he's just like, yeah, you see that? You see that? That's right. You see it? He's like 23 now. And so now he's just showing off. I only needed him to do like 20. So now that he does the 25, he gets down off the bar and he says, as he's fuming, he's looking at me and nods and he's like, and that's how men do pull-ups. Get mad. So with this analogy, with this story, because it's all true, with this story, he was getting into his zone. And what I believe that zone was an energy. It was an energy. It was like a state, a mind state. There's so much there. So I'm going to unpack what I've learned from that, because I can do 20 pull-ups now, by the way. It took me a few years, but I can do them now. So mindset, state, and zone, I think are all versions of maybe the same thing or versions of the energy. So your mindset is a frequency. Where is your mind focused on? Like, what do they say? Where your focus goes, your energy flows. What you think about day to day, day in, day out is what you act on. So that mindset, that frequency is super important. And that's all energy. Do you have a good frequency, a good mindset? Do you think about positive things more than you think about negative things? So I think that was one component of it, was the mindset. At that time, he set his mind on don't get off this bar without doing 20 pull-ups. Like in his mind, it was impossible. He could not fathom himself not getting to those 20 pull-ups. And that's the same thing in business. Like when you're around certain people, you set your mind, and Junior talked about this yesterday, about the guy that did $120,000 in sales and car sales, and then he did like 240. Like he set his mind to having that number and was around people that were hitting that number. So he believed, right? So that's one part of it. So mindset. Then you've got state. And state is, I believe, where the mind and the body is in alignment. So when you're in a certain state, let's say you're in a negative state, like you're thinking negatively and your body is responding negatively. So you're in a negative state. If you're in a positive state, I would say that your mind is in a positive space and your body is responding powerfully. It's very responsive. So you're just in a positive state. You're in a good state. And then when you get down to the last thing, which is zone, I think that is more of a habit, like a force field. So like, have you ever seen, and I don't want to get too technical, but it's like magnets. Like if it's a strong magnet and there's another piece of like metal, that magnet pulls that metal to it really, really hard and really, really strong. And I feel like that's what happens when we get into the zone. Like we magnetize our whatever it is we're trying to obtain. We bring it to us. So at that state of mind, like when he was in the zone, he was pulling pretty much the bar to his chin and nothing was going to stop him. And I think that's a really interesting story about energy, about state, about positivity, about power, and just how all these little things work together to help entrepreneurs do the things that seem impossible to people that aren't necessarily in that state. So what do you think, Junior, about just the opening story, about different things that you've done to get in the zone, get into the right state of mind, and the various frequencies, all that good stuff? What are your thoughts?
So one of my mentors, I've had, it's so funny, Bobby. I've had several mentors over the years. One of my mentors calls this the mental lab. So he calls it the mental lab, and that is Andy Elliott. He calls it the mental lab. So the mental lab is the mental state. The mental lab is where you go to create your mindset. So you create your mindset in the mental lab, and then you set your mind to a certain frequency or with certain rules. So I'll give you an example. Many people, like, they're afraid of what people think about them. So the mental lab is where you set to yourself, I'm not going to care what people think about me. I'm not going to care. People will laugh at me before I'm successful. The mental lab is where you say, like Dr. Michelle was saying, like energy is negatively impacted. The mental lab is where you go to create that impenetrable force field. It's like creating a force field around you, Bobby, that just blocks all negativity that is coming your way, that blocks all limiting beliefs, that blocks all negative thought. And then check this out. So write this down, guys, if you're writing. How do you create a mental lab? Number one, you never give your weakness a voice. So never give your weakness a voice. So Dr. Michelle, you know, if you're experiencing like a period in your life where you're feeling weak, where we've all had these moments, right, where we're talking negatively to ourselves, you never give that weakness a voice, meaning that you master your mouth. That's what we call it. You master your mouth. You never say it out loud. Like Bobby, like for example, a lot of people say, I'm tired. For example, you never say you're tired. You never give that weakness a voice. You master your mouth. That's one way to create that mental lab. So, Bobby, what I'll say is, I'll say, I don't get tired. I will never say I'm tired. I don't get tired. Okay? On the inside, you may feel like that a little bit, but on the outside, you never give that weakness a place to manifest itself in like the physical reality. So you never give the weakness a voice, and then you set certain rules and parameters around yourself to ensure your success. Another rule is you never believe in anything that does not serve you, even if it's true. You don't believe in anything that doesn't serve you, even if it's true. You know, like even if it's true that right now Okay, you're just in like a, like some people call it like a depressed state. You just don't believe it. Like, what's the point? What's the point of believing something that doesn't push you to become your best self? I don't believe it. I don't care if it's true. I will, and you know what? Just like I had the conversation with you, right? Sometimes you have to have thoughts that sort of defy what you see. You have to have thoughts that defy what you see, right? So even if in reality, in like the physical reality, it says one thing, in your mental lab, you have to have the capacity to say something else. You have to, just like the Bible says, you have to be in the world but not of it, meaning that you have to think and live from a mental lab, not necessarily what you see in reality. And guess what? Once you start to do that, the reality starts to change. There's a saying, Bobby, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. You could write that down. When you change the way that you look at things, the things you look at change. Okay, so they change when you change the way that you look at them. So I agree with what you're saying. Another way to get into that mental lab state, okay, is using certain words. So when it comes to fitness, for example, a guy that I used to follow a lot back in the day is a guy called CT Fletcher. Bobby, you know CT? Have you
I
ever done
do.
CT Fletcher? Bro. CT Fletcher. CT Fletcher is a master when it comes to mental toughness. When it comes to mental toughness, CT Fletcher is an absolute master. He's a master. CT Fletcher is the kind of guy. Just to give you a little background, CT Fletcher is a bodybuilder. He used to be the world champion for strict curling, which is like bicep curling. CT Fletcher used to be in the gym and he used to talk to his muscles and he used to tell his muscles, this is exactly what I'm talking about. I command you to grow. And he's talking to himself and he's telling himself, I come. And he's not coming like, a little weenie, like, oh, can you please grow? Oh,
Sure.
can you please grow? No, he's like, I command you. You have no choice. You will bend to my will. I command you to grow. So when you're talking to yourself and when you have that voice in your mind, like, listen, you're in charge. I don't know if you guys know, but you're in charge of that voice. Same voice that's telling you that you're not good enough. The same voice that's telling you that, hey, you're not doing this right. The same voice that's telling you you're depressed. You're in charge of that voice. So guess what you can do? You can command that voice. And all of that is the mental lab. The mental lab is where people like David Goggins go. So when he's no longer David Goggins, he's now Goggins. That's the mental lab. He's no longer Kobe, now he's the Black Mamba. That's the mental lab. So where do you go, okay, to find that strength in yourself? Do you have a mental lab? That's right, it's self-talk. It's self-hypnosis. That's what it is. It's self-hypnosis. But check this out. The self-hypnosis normally becomes true after a while because when you talk back to yourself and you speak from a position of power, okay, you normally take different actions that are in alignment with what you say. Andrew Tate says something that I used to do back in the day. When I used to train calisthenics, and I still do, but back in the day with my friend, and I told you the story before. I had a friend just like your friend, bro. I don't know, he's just genetically gifted. We were what we call sayers. So we will say. So what is a sayer? A sayer is somebody who says something, and anything you say, you have to do it. If I'm talking to Dr. Michelle, if Bobby and I were here, and I said, Bobby, we have to do 500 push-ups, we would not get off that floor. Literally, that was my friends and I getting into that state. We would not get off that floor until we did 500 push-ups. If I said we got to do 1,000, we would do 1,000 that day. And I told a story, Bobby, where we set out in the park the other day, and we were learning to do muscle ups. I'd never done one muscle up in my life. And when I got to the park, I said, okay, today we're doing 100 muscle ups. We stayed there in the park from like 9 a.m. to like 4 p.m. We did not leave that park until we did 100 muscle ups. So muscle ups are advanced pull-ups. We didn't leave the park until we did like 100. My hands were bleeding.
Right.
We did 100, but we were sayers, meaning whatever we said, we would do. And once you do become that kind of person, Bobby, you start to unlock a different kind of power in your mental lab. Like, it's like, bro, you become unstoppable. You don't want to be good. So there are people that are good, there are people that are great, and there are people that are unstoppable. I want to be unstoppable. I don't want to be good. I don't want to be great. I want to become unstoppable. And if you want to become unstoppable, you have to go into that mental lab and you have to be able to command your mind to bend to your will and to do what you needed to do.
You know, Junior, I love this conversation because as a Marine, that's all we do. All we do is things that we don't want to do that's going to unlock the next level of beast mode, period. And one thing that this has taught me is, and this is something you guys might want to write down. Um, you can't learn to swim on dry land. It's not going to happen. You cannot learn to swim on dry land. And what this means is that in order to get into the mental lab and start shaping this version of you, you've got to be in pain. Like, listen to me and just trust me. Trust me on this one. What I want to say might sound a little bit crazy, but this 12 years of military experience. Trust me. Now, when you are in a state of comfort, it is very hard to design the individual you need to be when you are in a state of distress, because you don't know how you're going to feel. It's all an assumption. You're in this good place. So imagine you are chilling, you're happy, you're smiling, and you're trying to create Goggins. It's not going to happen. Goggins was not created while laying in a plush, king size bed in the Marriott with the windows open and the sun coming in. No. Goggins was born, I'm very confident, built and sturdicized, right? That's not even a word, but like he was made sturdy while he was running miles on miles on miles. Goggins was created while he was eating leaves for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Goggins was probably created when he did not know how he was going to do another pull-up. And he did another one, and another one, and another one. So why is this so significant about the energy, about what we're talking about creating that impenetrable mindset, the mental lab, all of this stuff? Is because most people don't create the mental lab because they don't have the keys to get in. So I'm about to give you guys the keys. Put a 1 in the chat if you would like to know from someone that served special operations for over 6 years, deployed on 2 military combat deployments, and came back decorated. If you would like me to tell you the 2 keys you need to get into the mental lab on a militant level, here they are. You need pain and fear. Pain and fear. Now, you need to use them, not succumb to them. You need the pain to feel, because when you feel the pain, you're going to go somewhere. Anybody that's ever felt pain has done what I'm about to say. Close your eyes. Everybody has done it at least once. When you feel pain, most people do just like that. They grit their teeth and they close their eyes. This is like a natural reflex. Now, when you close your eyes, you have an option. You can tell the person to stop, or you can tell the thing to stop. Whatever you're doing, you can stop it, or you can tell yourself to keep going. It is in telling yourself to keep going through the pain that you unlock the next thing. It's not possible to do this in a state of comfort. It's not possible. All right, because you're not talking to the same person. Then the second thing is fear. So fear is interesting because it creates anxiety. And anxiety is a emotion that inhibits action. It prevents action. Fear, one of the biggest things that fear does is prevents action. I think that's the main thing it does. That's the only thing it does. Someone that's afraid to go outside by themselves, don't go outside by themselves. Someone that's afraid to fall in love does not fall in love. They don't date. Someone that is afraid to jump out of a plane does not jump out of a plane. All fear's primary function is to prevent you from taking an action. So when you have the thing that would prevent you from taking an action and you take that action anyway, you then reduce your anxiety meter. When you reduce the anxiety meter, you start to build something inside of yourself that says, even when I don't want to do it or I'm afraid to do it, I do it. If you can master fear and pain, you will find yourself inside of what we call the mental lab. One of the fastest ways to get there in business is to make an investment. The reason you do that is because it does both of them at the same time. The fear and anxiety is going to come from, can I pay this? Should I do this? Is this smart? How am I going to afford it? All the fear is there. And then you do it anyway. So boom, check that one off. Out of the way. And then you got the pain. The pain says, I never done this before. I'm doing it, and I don't know how to do it, and I don't know what I'm going to have to sacrifice in order to finish. So now you're spending money, and then you're realizing, oh man, I can't do this anymore, such as going out to eat or going to my daily this, that, and the third. So that sacrifice costs you something. Then you may find yourself like, oh snap, if I'm going to finish this course, I'm going to finish this thing, I'm going to be up late. That costs you something else. And now you're battling fatigue, frustration, sacrifice, and that's the pain you need. And when you're in that place and you're like, this sucks, I don't like it, I wish it would stop, and you keep going anyway, it's a wrap. You're creating, you're in the lab. Now, what you do in the lab is up to you. Like pain and fear, those are just the keys to get you in the lab. Once you get in the lab, that's when the work begins. You have to then be able to calm yourself down enough to think in the lab, to separate yourself from the pain and then fashion. But this person must be fashioned in the lab. You cannot fashion them in comfort.
Man, you describe perfectly actually the process.
That's right.
You describe the process, and what I find interesting is like when you get to that place, you realize that you could do so much more. In fact, since we're talking about Goggins, I saw a Goggins video maybe like a week or two ago that said that when you feel like you've maxed out, you've probably only done like 40% of what you can do. You're only like 40% in. And I was saying to myself, Bobby, that's something I need to, I don't know, put on some kind of like print it out on something and put on my wall. So that when I feel like, okay, I'm maxed out, like I'm tapped out, right up there, like, bro, you're only 40%. You're only 40% in. You have another 60%. Just if you just lean in. So this is so true. We're going to go to a quick break. If you find it value from this conversation, just go ahead and put some flames in the comments. We'll be right back after this. Stay tuned.
I said Shaan right east. I'm proud. I said Shaan right east. Leadership is not the brand they made for us.
Listen, he brought fire, heat. He didn't hold back.
20 years down the line, what I could sell, why not serve first? Service over salary. Branding like a leader closes the gap for people who want branding. Speaking like a leader closes the gap for people who are nervous about speaking. If Steve Jobs would have speculated, we wouldn't have Apple.
He changed lives. He helped people open up their business and start their business.
We are the brand. Some people say, Shaan, should I quit my job? Mentally, yes.
As a speaker too, to be able to learn from him and watch him and you know, game respects game. And I want to have that much game someday.
The right client, pay $500,000 for what you do. You have to be bold. in your
He
beliefs.
has been an amazing asset to this event and a pleasure to work with. Very captivating, collaborative, worked very well with the audience.
I want to help you. Put a 0 behind your number, right?
The session was great. How he is online, virtually, he is even more phenomenal in person.
Be the face of change that you want to see. Stop asking questions and start giving demands.
The entire team has just been absolutely incredible. They are a joy to work with. They go above and beyond.
Give yourself a round of applause. Yes, yes, yes. Confidence is key. Most of the people I work with, they have the education, the experience, and the expertise. We call those the 3 E's. But they're looking for the 3 I's, the income, the impact, and the independence. And I always tell them that the bridge between the 3 E's and the 3 I's is marrying your confidence to your competence. Most of the people I work with, again, have all of the competence in the world. What I help them do is get the confidence.
All right, guys, so we are back. We're talking about mental toughness. Speaking of which, there's this book that I need to buy. I actually have it. I have it on a browser. It's called The Book of Mental Toughness. It's by a guy called Andy Frisella. If you know David Goggins, you most likely know Frisella. Andy Frisella, MF CEO. Let me tell you something. He runs like a $1 billion brand, literally $1 billion brand, $1 billion company. So mental toughness is a topic that is literally discussed by all top people in our industry and in every industry. Literally every single industry. So my question to you is, what are you doing to become mentally tough? And how can you become mentally tough in business? Bobby, I feel what that really boils down to, a couple things, is resilience, the ability to solve problems, and the ability to remain calm and level-headed under pressure. Literally. Like, if you could be resilient, if you could remain level-headed under pressure, okay, then you could become mentally tough. You could push yourself to new levels that you never thought possible for you and for your business. If you remain smart, like, you have to be smart too. You have to be smart. You have to be creative. And you have to keep coming back. You have to never, ever, ever give up. Never let them see you sweat. Never give up, ever. Doesn't matter if you're succeeding or failing, just don't give up. Just stay in the game. And eventually you become mentally tough.
And really, this alone, I want to share something with you guys. And this is, again, from my military experience. Like, very few people talk about stuff like this in my experience. But the dark side, you got to learn how to use it. Now, I'm not going to go too deep into it because there's a lot there. But I'll tell you something like this. Pride, envy, jealousy. Those are all emotions we know we should not lean into, right? And we should not let them take over us. But the reason a lot of people know about these is because they're very, very strong emotions. And strong emotions motivate action. The stronger the emotion, the stronger the action. So one thing that we learned in the military is that you've got to use those negative emotions before they use you, because they're going to show up. Just because they're there, they're going to show up. So one of the things that I know about community and about being in the right environment is because oftentimes it gives your negative emotions a place to be accepted as competition. So, for example, I'll give a real life example. So most times when you're hiking, like we do in the military, you've got like boots, you've got this kit on that's like 100 pounds, you got your weapon system, and everybody's hiking. People are getting blisters on their feet. Everybody is. People's backs are hurting. Everybody's back is hurting. People's necks are weighing down. And people are hot. Everybody's sweating, right? But guess what? Everybody's getting a second and third win. Now, the second thing is nobody's going down at the same time. Like, no, not all, let's say 50 people are marching, not all 50 of them are going to feel the same way the exact same time. So what's significant about this? It means that you can borrow the energy of the next man, or you can feed off of the misery of the next man. And this is crazy, but it's true. So imagine that you're marching or you're hiking and you see somebody that's just dying. They're just bent over, humped back, and they look like they're about to fall out. In the back of your mind, you can say, "You weak piece of stuff. I'm crushing you. I'm killing you, dude. I'm da 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 da." And that's a good release of that emotion, because it's kind of like a aggressive emotion. It's an emotion that says you're weak, you're this, you're that. But that person hasn't caught their second win. As long as they don't quit, they're going to get their second win. And then you're going to be like crushing it. You're hiking it out and you're feeding off of their misery. And then you get to a point where you're like, oh my gosh, man, I'm kind of burnt out. When's the next checkpoint? And then you start hunching over, leaning over a bit. And that same guy that you were just feeding off of starting to stand up a little more right. That blister's skin is peeled off completely. So they're flowing now. They're bleeding, but it's all good at this point. They're like, okay, I'm here. And now they're looking over at you. Hey, hang in there, buddy. And they're humping it out. So the interesting thing about the military and about the way we do things, like, there is brilliance in the basics. There's a reason we hike together. There's a reason we march together. We run together in units. It's because we're feeding off of each other's energy. That's how we open the call. So you can feed off the misery, but then you can see the other guy. So then you've got the studs. The studs are the dudes that are just, we 13 miles in and they haven't even broke a sweat yet. Like, these are your marathon runners. They eat vegan. They don't even, like, they sleep 8 hours a day. They're the perfect Marine. They have no wives, no kids, no life. All they do is work out, wake up, go to sleep, work. Like, that's all they do. And they're Marines just like that. Like, that's all they do. And they're pumping it out. And you're looking at them like, oh my gosh, like, do you like eat, sleep? And they're just, you all right? You good? You all right? And they're having fun with it. And you watch them. So you're like, yo, I'm hurting. And you look over at that guy. If he can do it, I can do it. If he can do it, I can do it. So I'll digress there, but I say that to say this. There are negative emotions that you feel when you're in the lab, or if you're even, aggressive enough to get to the lab. A lot of people don't endure enough pain to even get in the zone of the lab. But if you are, one of the best places you can be is around other people that are simultaneously in the lab with you, because you're all working on different things at different times. And one of the best things you can do when you're in the lab is have someone that you can look to the left and the right to and ask a question, or find some motivation, or find something to keep you in the lab. The longer you can stay in the lab of your mental creation laboratory, the more resilient you can make the mind. It's a lot like muscles. It's time under tension. So if you can get into the lab and you can stay there for like an hour, then great. You're going to build an hour's worth of reservoir. But for people like me, we've done training evolutions that lasted 5 days, where you're no food, you're being beaten, and all these different things in 5 days. And you're running, and you're gunning, and you're working. And I was in laboratories that long. Day 1, day 2, I don't know what day it is. And when it's over, it's over. So
I wrote down something. And by the way, this is really good because it speaks about the power of competition. So competition to me is like conspiring to go to new levels. That's what I see. So it's conspiring together. So it's like we're competing, but we're not enemies. So there's a difference between competition and enemy. The enemy is not the man beside you or the woman beside you. The enemy is the one behind you, the one that you cannot see. A lot of people think like, okay, like a lot of people don't like, if you're doing something good, you may get people that don't like you. Like that's standard. But what they don't realize is that like their enemy is not you. Like their enemy is not the woman or the man beside them. Like it's not the person you can see. The person when you look to your left and you look to your right. You can see that, like, that's not your enemy. Your enemy is what you don't see. Your enemy is what you don't see. Okay. So I love competition. Absolutely love it. I love the fact, listen, I believe in winners, I believe in losers, right? I don't believe in everybody gets a medal, things like that. I don't believe in that. I believe in real life. And competition is something that is, or that can be used to absolutely ascend to different levels in your mind. When I was training with my genetically gifted friends, we were competing, and I knew that they had a, like, the guys are like 6'4", 6'5". They can eat like 10 pizzas and not put on a ounce of fat. So I knew that, hey, I'm not that kind of person. Okay, that's not my body type. Cool, but it doesn't matter. Like, I'm still gonna do what I need to do to stay alive and to compete at the highest level and to try to beat them. I'm trying to beat them, Bobby, even if all of the odds are stacked against me, even if they're genetically more gifted than I am, even if, you know, they're a little taller than I am. So they may be able to do things that I cannot do very easily, right? And I'm there, and I don't care. I don't care. I'm doing the best, and I'm trying to push them, right,
Hmm.
to the next level as well. So I think competition, the power of competition is really good. Like, guys, if you have kids, get your kids to compete against each other. If you have boys, especially, have friendly competition. Like, get them to push each other to succeed. If you have girls, get them to push each other to succeed in positive ways, with skills like speaking, like training, things like that. Like, competition always, always, always moves the bottom line, whether it's in sales. If you're in a sales environment and you have competition, you're closing something. Like, if you were not closing anything, you're closing something. Because this guy's closing something, I have to close something. And then as a result, you close something. So sales, business, marketing. If you're a business owner right now and you're in a community with people who are doing the same thing that you do, you should be competing to be the best. I mean, the absolute best. Literally. There's nothing wrong with trying to be the best.
Hmm.
You're trying to be the best. They're also trying to be the best. The end result is you both move your bottom lines. You both move your bottom line. So if you were like at a 2 and you're trying to get to a 10, and the other woman or the other man was at like a 3, and you're trying to beat their 3 and get to a 5 or eventually get to a 10, maybe you get to a 6, and then maybe she moves to a 7. Doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you still move from a 2 to a 6. She still moved from a 3 to a 7. You both did better. And that's the whole point. So I believe in competition. I believe that competition in business is good. Okay. And that's just how business works, especially if in a capitalist style economy, right? It brings about stuff like inventions. That's why we see new inventions coming out. That's why we see better prices coming out. It's because businesses are competing to do things cheaper, better, and faster. And as a result, who benefits? The end user always benefits. So who benefits when you compete in business? Your clients benefit. Your clients are the ones who eventually benefit from you becoming better, you being able to do things more efficiently, you being able to do things more luxuriously, and you being able to push the standards for what you can do. So I 100% believe in competition.
And I'm going to give you guys a hack, okay? A hack to get into the mental lab and stay there longer. So David Goggins says it like this: do something hard every day. I love that. I love that. And when I say do something hard, we mean like do something that you don't think you do, something you've never done before. It could be a PR, a personal best or something like that, a personal record, but do something you've never done before. But that's just one way. But the reason I share that with you is because what you're looking for, guys, is what I call ice. So I have a ego. So Kobe has the Black Mamba. David Goggins has Goggins. I have Iceman Jack. So my last name is Jackson, and Iceman Jack is a guy that I had to create when I was when I needed to go numb and blank at the same time. So a lot of times in the military, uh, time is not on your side. Like you have to make decisions and take action in split seconds. So you don't have time to think, you don't have time to feel, you just have to go. So Iceman Jack was my guy that I had to create when I said I need to become the Iceman. And the Iceman doesn't feel anything. He doesn't think about anything. He doesn't feel anything. And he just goes. And to cultivate this person, I built them in the cold shower sequence. I would just do as cold as it could get, and I would just stay there as I built this guy up. But the reason I wanted to share this person with you is to share two things. Don't think or feel, just breathe. So when you get good at this, when you get really good at this, you will be able to breathe your way through what you're experiencing. And let me see how much time we got. Oh man, I'm gonna try to give you guys this in like 2 minutes. Breathing is the most natural thing we do, like rhythmically. It does it without us thinking about it. So when we are training and when we are in pain, many times with our instructors, whatever we're learning, it could be rifle, pistol, martial arts, whatever it is, I have always heard this running, just, you guessed it, breathe, just breathe. So what breathing does is breathing brings you to the state of the natural order. So when you're in pain, you're out of your natural order. When you're experiencing fear, you're out of the natural order. Breathing, however, is something you're doing while you're in pain and while you're experiencing fear. So one of the best ways to get to execute properly under pain and fear is to breathe, because breathe is going to take you to a state of neutrality. So what we do when we're doing this, or when we're training to do this, is we train and we control our breathing while we're training. We are very conscious, and a lot of people don't know this about Marines. Like when we're training very consciously about how we're breathing, what we're doing when we're breathing, and we're paying attention to ourselves while we're in control. So once you feel pain, most people close their eyes, grit their teeth, and they start losing control. When you breathe through the pain, you start to regain control while experiencing the pain. When people experience fear and anxiety, what do? Their heart speeds up and they start breathing faster. Some people start to hyperventilate. What we do as Marines is we take a assessment of the situation, we acknowledge the breathing, and we slow the breathing down. And as soon as we slow the breathing down, we didn't change the environment around us. We changed the rate of our breathing, which transformed the way we're interpreting the information. So when you're in the lab and you're in pain or you're experiencing fear, one of the best ways to stay in that space longer than you normally would is by getting your breath under control and staying with what we call the breath. We say stay in the breath and don't come out of the breath. When you stay in the breath, what ends up happening is you're able to do three things. And this is the last thing I'll give you guys. So we call it being present. When you're present, it's a 3-step process. You embrace it, you observe it, you release it. So when you inhale, when we're experiencing pain, we call it embrace the suck. We embrace the experience. And then once we've embraced it, we observe it. We're breathing still, we're inhaling. We've inhaled it, boom, got it. As we're inhaling it, we're analyzing the data. As we analyze the data, we then release it with the exhale. We release the data with the exhale, and then we breathe in again. And we keep doing this as we dissect the situation. And that's what allows us to slow things down in our minds and execute at very high paces.
Yes, sir. Bobby, how much time do we have? All right, we have like 2 minutes. So yeah, that process is very, I'm very familiar with that process. And a lot of people who have things like anxiety, that's actually how you control that. Just in case any of you do, that's how you actually control. Like you use your breath to just like when you breathe, you're able to become conscious of the world around you, and then you're able to make a decision. You're able to, and in fact, being able to control your breath allows you to control your emotion. And being able to control your emotion allows you to control your action. And if you can control your action, you could choose what you do in that moment. You could choose between what they say fright, flight, or freeze. You could choose between which one you're gonna do in that moment. All right, so Bobby, we've come to the end, but before we do, I noticed Tia put something in there. So Tia says, "Happy Father's Day to you both. Enjoy your day, 365." It is true. Like tomorrow is Father's Day. Tomorrow is Father's Day. So happy Father's Day to all the phenomenal father. Happy Father's Day to you, Bobby, the father of many. And guys, thank you so much. We did a Mother's Day shout out. We didn't do a Father's Day shout out. So shout out to all of the fathers looking absolutely phenomenal. Listen, we need more strong fathers in our homes, in our communities. Listen, I don't know. Without fathers, bro, I don't know where we would be. I don't know where we would be.
Right.
So, guys, if you're celebrating, if you're a father, happy Father's Day to you. Keep doing a phenomenal job at making our kids strong and then making them able to navigate the world and to become successful. So, thank you so much. And thank you, everybody who is viewing. I see Coach B. Shout out to you. Have a happy weekend, and then we will see you next week. Speak soon. Take care. Bye bye. Let's grow.